Pistol Pete Maravich was my childhood hero, and I mean, ultimately became my business partner, and he was just a mentor. Terrific guy, an incredible athlete, probably one of the greatest basketball players to ever lace up sneakers. You know, he was the Elvis of basketball. There's no doubt about it. In the time he showed up, basketball was pretty straightforward. I mean, you had Bob Cousy, who maybe was the only guy really doing some tricks or things with the ball. But Pete's dad, Press, said, look, man, if you can learn great drills and great fundamentals and you can apply it to the game in a game situation. And that's what Press set out to do, is teach him fundamentals to a point that was insanely perfect. And so that's why Pete would practice for 4-6 hours a day. He used to tell me about the 3 Ds. He said desire, discipline, and dedication. He says desire makes you go out there even when you don't want to go out there. Discipline means you do it over and over and over. And dedication is like being married to the sport, because I was dedicated to the sport. And we felt like we better get this on camera. We better get this into some sort of story to where we can tell the world about this incredible person who started off as a kid and took a sport and took it to the highest of heights. And ultimately, you know, he was the youngest man ever inducted, youngest player ever inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame. Pistol Pete played 3 years eligibility at LSU. He had no three-point line, and yet scored over 44 points per game all 3 years that he played. He could shoot at will. He could dribble around people. He shot over really extremely tall people taller than him. And he shot falling down. I mean, we have some footage in the documentary where he's like falling backwards, has people on him. Ball still goes through. It's like an angel dropping that ball through the hoop. It's just crazy. I was asked to write the film, The Pistol. I was writing Days of Our Lives at the time, and coming to the end of a contract, and I was asked to then write this motion picture, and I'd always wanted to write a movie. So why not write one about my childhood sports hero? I mean, he was the greatest to me. Flew down, met with Pete, actually met him in California first, and then flew down to Louisiana to his home. And what a great guy to hang out with. He was just amazing. I thought, let's make a book out of this deal. Let's see what we can do. So Thomas Nelson at the time, they thought this was a terrific story, and we did a book called Heir to a Dream. And Heir to a Dream became one of the top sports biographies in the country. Then we worked our way backwards. I said, okay, now let's crunch this together. Take all this legendary stuff that he used to do and put it in that 8th grade year when he was trying so hard to make the team and to show that he wasn't just a little hot dog that could do all these between the leg drills, behind the back, shoot from anywhere, but he was a real player. So we do a story about how he gets his chance, and of course he sets the world on fire from there. One of the last things Pete and the director and I had done together was we had an audition. We auditioned hundreds of kids to play the role of Pistol Pete. And of course Pete had chosen a kid. His name was Adam Geyer. He said that kid has the right physique, he has some skills, he's really rough around the edges, but what if we teach him? Well, Pete dies, what do we have left? The Homework Basketball series. So we gave the kid this 4-tape series and said, do everything you can see on these tapes. And goodness, you know, you've seen the movie. Adam Geyer dedicated himself, desire, dedication, discipline, and he became a skillful 12, 13-year-old kid.
I didn't really know much about Pete until I found out about the movie and everything. I read some books in my library and everything about him, and I found out a lot about Pete, and then I read Heir to a Dream. And so by the time I got down there, my dad had told me how great a player he was. So I loved Pete by the time I got down there. Whenever I got there, there was a big old line out in front, and I got to go in first. And I went out in front. I had to sign up and give him my picture and everything, and then we went downstairs. We went into a huge room that had 2 or 3 basketball courts, And there was a big old table, and Pete and Mr. Frank and Daryl, they were all sitting there at the table. And they told us to get in this square and do as many basketball drills or any basketball drill you knew how to do in front of Pete and everything. And then they would watch you, and they filmed it and everything to where they could watch it later. At first they told me that they wanted me to start sending tapes down there. And at that time, I was in the hospital sick, so we told them we couldn't do it. We were never able to make the tape because football season started. I broke my arm. And they told me, they said, I still want you to make the tape with one arm. I couldn't believe it. I mean, out of all those people, he picked me. I've practiced, before I came down here, I was practicing about 3 hours a day by myself after school, and I dribbled the ball everywhere. I sometimes even slept with the ball. By the time I got down here, we were practicing 4 hours a day, and on some days 6 hours a day. So it gets pretty tough on some nights. I'm having a great time.
You can see even as the extras in the background, they're just so stoked about being there. They lined up to get their hair and makeup and wardrobes done. They were totally polite. I was Mr. Darryl. I mean, it's like, it was not like other places I've done films and television shows, in that it was like, what can we do to make this a success? And they were there to help us out. As far as the fire department, we didn't have a rain machine. We weren't in Los Angeles. We couldn't just pick up the phone and have a rain machine brought over. So we got the local fire department and their fire hose, and they basically sprayed the water straight up in the air, and the wind was perfect, and the lighting was great. Randy Walsh and his crew and the lighting guys, they just made it look like it was raining. So you see at the beginning of the film, it's a beautiful shot, and again, you have the fire department excited to be there, excited to help you. And it's just that Louisiana hospitality, really. Millie Perkins, first of all, who's a terrific actress. People knew her from The Diary of Anne Frank, and we just happened to find out that we had a connection to her through one of my dearest friends, Peter Andrews, who co-produced The Pistol. And he said, well, my sister-in-law is Millie Perkins. And I'm thinking, what can we get her to play the mother in The Pistol? She'd be perfect. She reminded us so much of Helen Maravich. So gave her a phone call, and of course she did it as a favor to us. I mean, we didn't have a big budget, but she said, I want to work this film because I love the story. And she studied a little bit about Pistol Pete and that whole thing, and the history of the family, and she was terrific. I mean, brought joy to the set. Millie's awesome. The guy that plays the father is Nick Benedict. Now, Nick and I, a lot of people knew Nick from All My Children, but Nick and I had worked on a soap opera together. And I just loved his strength on camera, and I asked him if he would do this for us, to play the role of Press Maravich. And I mean, he threw himself into this role. And I gave him these long speeches like, if you dedicate yourself, and those speeches to the guys that he does, he was Press Maravich. Now, I had gotten to know Press, a few years before he died, and Press was really such a, he's a fiery man, but then he became just this gentle, lovable bear of a guy. And what I thought Nick Benedict did was he captured both of those personalities. That loving father who poured his life into his child's life, and then he played that tough, Navy guy who was a war hero. Boots Garland is a real coach. He's coached on all levels, in high school and college and even in the pros. He, to my recollection, was a speed coach to some of the professional football teams, and he's just an amazing guy, and he brought so much fun to the set as Coach Pendleton. There are people in your lives who really care about you. You got to find them, glean from them, and I think that Boots brought to that role of Coach Pendleton this grouchy guy who, you know, boy, if you're waiting on me, you're already late. You know, the guy has all these colorful things that he says, but deep down he goes, you know, he's a pretty swell guy, you know, from the 1960s. He's just a nice man who, of course, for some kids in high school, their coach becomes their dad. So once again, you have this father-like figure that's a recurring theme in The Pistol. Somebody that you can look up to, somebody that's giving back to a kid. I thought I'd put on a few more pounds just so I wouldn't always be known as Carl Canfield. But yeah, I'm the soda jerk in the movie. If you see, also the team manager. Shaved all my hair off, put on glasses, and they even lowered the inseam in my pants about 6 or 7 inches just to make me look a little bit stupider. But it was a lot of fun, and I was an actor long before I was a writer. So I thought, well, if I ever do a film that I want to put myself in, I'll do it. And being able to act in a movie about one of my childhood heroes was a dream come true. And I get more, you know, people ribbing me about that than you can imagine. Hey, you're Carl Canfield, you know. So anyway, it's one of my legendary roles, as you can imagine. It's just embarrassing in airports when people point and say, hey, aren't you that nerd? Yeah. There was a legend going around that Pistol Pete once had spun a ball on his finger for an hour. Well, I asked him, I said, you know, I've heard that before in the past. Is that true? And he said, well, sure. He said, the way I did it basically was if my finger got tired, I would just work my way down my hand. I'd just use another finger because it did get raw and began to bleed a little bit, and there the nail cracked, and so he would just keep spinning. To him, it's what he did all his life since he was a little kid. So spinning a ball on his finger was like, you know, you and I eating a bowl of cereal. It was just, you know, just do it. And so he did a little gambling, you know, bet these guys he could do it. I don't know what he won, it's $10 or something like that. So I thought, this got to be in the movie. We got to put that in the movie. And the director did a really good job of sort of recreating that whole environment, kids around him, and we wanted to do almost like a Pied Piper thing where he's going down the street and more people gather around, then more people, and more people. And he could as a kid, or of course in college, he could put a crowd together if he wanted to. He was a showman. He enjoyed entertaining. Pete would have probably been in the movie had he been alive. Maybe played himself as an older, you know, as an older character or something there at the beginning of the film. But he was a showman first, and so for him, spinning the ball on the finger for an hour, that's all about putting on a show. You know, it also helped him to fit in with some kids where maybe he didn't feel like he fit in. We shot that scene in that, if you see in the film, as we call it, treats, and tried to recreate it in sort of the way it may have happened. And I thought, well, how do we? You know, as a writer, I'm always thinking, there's a beginning, and then there's a middle, and there's an ending to each sequence. So the ending, I thought, well, you know, I know that he can bounce this off his head and put it into the basket. Pistol Pete could do it as a kid. I thought, well, Adam Geyer needs to do this. And that kid, Adam Geyer, we take the ball down the street. You see it in the film. We take it to a park, and of course, we count down. 3, 2, 1, he bounced off his head and it goes right in. The kid was amazing. One of the things we want to do with this re-release of the DVD in high definition, make it a great looking movie, you know, even better than before. There's so many Maravich fans out there. We felt like, as a tribute to Jackie, his wife, and to his kids, and to what we try to do, and to Pete, he said, Daryl, let's make a movie about hope, and let's make a movie that we can be proud of. I think that's what The Pistol is.